Hello and welcome to another How to Play Starcraft 2 unit guide. In this guide we'll be going through every single unit and building in the game, going over their abilities, their strengths, their weaknesses. So in this video we are talking about the Observer. There he is. Oh, there it is rather. Now the Observer is one of the 5 originals from Brood War. We've already covered 4/5 of them who are, here we go, the Zealot, the well, we've covered the rest. The only other one that we haven't covered is the carrier, and that'll be got into in a future video. So then, as of now, the observer is the core of product detection and surveillance. Now, as for in-game lore, now from the earliest days of exploration in the Protoss Empire, these robots were used to do exactly what their name implies, which is to observe and gather intelligence. The Count Observer is based on their older model, which you can see in, well, Starcraft 1. And the thing about the Observer is that it trades off weapons and armor, and actually speed, for stealth, preferring to watch quietly from afar, rather than, try and dash over, get a quick glimpse. Okay, so that's the brief lore. This might be a shorter video, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about where you get them from. Okay, so we have our trusty probe, which my student has aptly named Probius. Well, Probius will get to building. Okay, so first thing you have to do is, of course, you have to get your pylon, your gateway, your cybernetics core, then your robotics facility. Once your robotics facility is done, you can produce observers at will. Basically, for any of the first two, you could produce it, so you can make an observer. There we go. Okay, so it's produced from the robotics facility. That's kind of it. Now, the upgrades get a little bit more interesting because you can get upgrades from 3 places for this thing, which is the Forge, which we've seen for all of our gateway units, but only from the Forge you can only get shields. Because you click on the Observer itself, it will have 2 potentials, which is plating and shields. So if I click on shields, shields go to +1, as do all, thus everything else. The other upgrade that you can get from plating is honestly from the cybernetics core. Here we go. Upgrade Protoss Air Armor 1. So if I press on this,
Upgrade.
see, it's now increased. Because this is a flying unit, so its armor comes from the air and not from the ground. The last place you can get upgrades is from the robotics bay. And this is something called gravitic boosters. We'll get to that in a second. Let's just turn that on.
Research.
So if you want to build an observer, the default hotkeys is BG for gateway, BY for cybernetics core, and then V, and then R for robotics facility, and then you can make observers. If you want to upgrade them, it is then VB. If you change your hotkeys, well, then that's something else. Okay, let's go back. Get rid of Probius. Now, let's talk about what some of the outright abilities are. Now, the first is detection. This is quite straightforward and simple. We'll get to that in examples. Now, the next, a bit more important, is cloaking. So this is the second cloak unit you would get, meaning that in addition to having anti-air, you also need your own detection to take down, unless it flies into a turret, spore, cannon. Now, something I'd like to point out that while this unit cannot be targeted by the enemy, we'll see so in an example later, the enemy can see it via a shimmer, and it's often a sign that the enemy Zerg, Terran, or Protoss needs to either bring its detection or get detection. Now, the other ability it has is surveillance mode. Okay, so this is an activated ability. Basically, what it does is that, like the siege tag, the lurker, the liberator, the widowmine, it basically trades mobility for range. So right now you can see further. I'm just gonna put it back to, yep. See, you can see 25% more in surveillance mode, but it can't move. It's not moving. I cannot select it. Or rather, I can't get it to do nothing. Then it changes back and then it can fly to wherever you wish. That was only implemented in I think 2017, 2018 to allow players to not have it in their all army hotkey. When you move your army, it moves as well. Now the last upgrade is called Gravitic Boosters. Now this is a good upgrade, but it's rarely gotten until the late game simply because it doesn't have that much core utility. And to demonstrate, I'm gonna have two observers. Because you see, other upgrades like thermal lens and warp drive are preferred. So what it does is that it makes it go faster and accelerate more quickly. Now this can be quite important out on the enemy. Of course, you also need to be careful it doesn't outfly your own forces. So this is Blue's observer without the upgrade, and Red obviously has. So you can see the difference. Similar to the one in Brood War. Okay, so let's talk about some of its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, strength. Okay, so the first strength obviously is detection. In fact, let me switch off its upgrades for fairness. Okay, this is off. Where is gravitic boosters? There it is. Okay, let's see who's here right now. Okay, domain, arena, remove. Now we've had this example in the past where we talked about Dark Templars. Let's say you have, in fact, let's make it more dramatic. Let's say you have 5 Immortals, which we've covered, and 5 Colossus, which we will cover in future. This is a really strong army, but 5 Dark Templars, 5 enemy Dark Templars will shred them. Because the Dark Templars, are cloaked. Here it is, permanently cloaked. Yeah, they're gonna kill everything. However, if you just add one observer into that mix and you redo this again, the Dark Templars don't even reach the main army. So that's kind of important. In ZV against the Zerg, you also need them to detect creep. I'll just run a quick example now. Of course, Terran has their own cloak units, which you'll need to use this as well. But for Zerg, slightly different. Let me show you what I mean. Let's get rid of this. Now, apart from Zerg having their own range of cloaked units, oops, misclick. Okay, Zerg also has something called creep, which gives Zerg units a movement speed buff. So if I just attack, I can't actually attack these tubers. These tubers extend out how much creep there is, but it's considered cloaked. Yeah, they can choose a hatchery, but that's beside the point. Of course, you add in an observer, and then you can clean it up. So that's why it's important in Protoss versus Zerg, and that's its first core. Its core strength. Okay, let's clear the board. Now, the next core strength it has is intelligence gathering. What I mean by this? Well, let's say you're playing against Terran. But if you know anything about Terran, you know that there are two core playstyles. One is you go for Bio, which is a heavy infantry focus, which requires high Templars and Disruptors to clear effectively. Or they could go for Mech, which is a mixture of mechanical units, Hellions, Hellbats, more siege tanks. But often you need to figure out what the enemy is going for. So, in this case, let's say the enemy is going for Mech. If you didn't have this observer, Okay, you come over here, you see its back, you know that you need immortals, disruptors to clean it up. Less so high Templars. Now they can also be placed, let's say, just on top of this army. They can't do anything about it without detection. In order to watch, so you know when this army is going to do a move out, and then you can respond appropriately. And it can also be used to say, like, if you're attacking this, like, do I want to flank it? Do I want to, let's say, avoid it, go around, attack a base while they move out, that kind of thing. Okay, so the last strength that I classify here is checking for the dead zones. This is more for dealing with harassment, and I will need to go to a new terrain to do this. Okay, so let's say, okay, let's build some buildings, get some stalkers, get some probes, and the other side we have this. Now, one of the great issues in PV anything is the nature of drops. I'll just use Terran because they're the most prolific droppers, but Protoss has Warp Prisms, Zergs have Dropalords and Nidus Worms, and if you're actually only playing as red, you wouldn't be able to see what's happening down here. And it makes sense to place your Stalkers at the front, but a Terran army can just do this.
Ready for pickup? Dropping off.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up or dropping off?
Oh no, then the Stalkers respond. Okay, and then they get the heck out of here.
Talk to me.
Chase him down. Nope. Drops gone. And just like that, you lost your entire middle line. But if you had a single observer, okay, let's get the probes to mining. You put your observer in surveillance mode over this dead space where your stalkers can't really be. Okay, let's say you load up the medevac.
Waiting on you. Let's go.
Okay, you're here, you're watching your base, you're macroing up, you're building more pylons, and then you see them, you can pull your stalkers into position. Okay, you can micro and then you can take a little bit less damage. Of course, you know, depending on how the engagement goes, you still may or may not die, but at least you saw it coming. This can be quite important for, let's say, Widowmine drops, Liberators. Basically spotting for weird things at the corners of your base, because a lot of maps do have what is called dead space, areas where only flying units can access. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about some of the weaknesses of the Observer. Well, the most clear-cut weakness is that they have no guns. No guns, no blades, no beams, no bombs, no nothing. Let's go back to the arena. Let's take 5 Stalkers, an Observer, against PvP, 5 Stalkers, and an Immortal. So Observers can't attack. And even if you have a lot of you, I mean, you could have 100 Observers here, it's going to make no difference to the fight on the ground. This is still going to be the result every single time. So, duh. Now, another weakness they have is that they're actually relatively slow until you get the upgrade, but you won't realistically get that upgrade until much late. Actually, no. Let's talk about the losses, because this is directly relevant to the other example. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit on the screen, does it? There. Okay, see, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Observer, the Immortal, and to an extent the Warp Prism. Now, while the Observer is not expensive, it's only $25.75, fair amount of gas. The key is that they all come from the robotics facility as mentioned earlier. From the robotics facility. And the issue is opportunity cost. So the real problem is that every observer you produce is not an immortal. And if you make, let's say, 3 observers, lose all of them, There could be 3 more and let's say your opponent makes 3 observers and doesn't lose them. You effectively need to replace your observers, and that could have been immortals. And that's a huge difference because as you see in this fight, immortals are kind of key too. Yes, you can see this army coming, but if you can't stop it, what's the point? So it's really the opportunity cost of losing um, observers, which is really the pain point. Okay, so let's talk about the last weakness, which I touched on briefly, which is they are slow-ish. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, let's go back to that scenario where you were playing against Terran Mech. A Cyclone and a... Okay, let's say the Raven is elsewhere. It's set on patrol. Okay, then you come in to try and see what's going on. Okay, you look at this, you see the Cyclone, you think everything's fine. But if you don't micro away real fast and your observer comes back, it's very easy to lose them. As another example, let's say instead of a Cyclone you have a Viking. And let's say you're going in, you're trying to figure out what's what, where they are. Yep, the Vikings' range combined with its speed allows it to chase down and shoot down observers. So that's why they, to me at least, are slow-ish. So those are the 3 weaknesses of the observer. Okay, so let's talk about some matchup specific comments. In PvT, it's used to scout for tech. You know, as aforementioned, the mech army earlier. They are also used in PvT to hold off Cloak Banshee, I would say, rushes? Or Cloak Banshee attacks, because the Banshee is also a cloaked unit. Oh, you have to research Cloak.
I got my ears on.
Come on. No, that's for the ghost. There we go. So if you attack them, you can't actually target them down, but you bring an observer along. Table's count of turn. So in PvP, in the aforementioned example, they are used to deal with Dark Templars to stop DT rushes. In addition, they also are used for same thing to scout for tech, to scout for army movement. And one thing you can bet is that your opponent is almost certainly going to go for the observers of their own. In PvZ, as mentioned, same thing, scout for army movement, scout for tech, but also to clean up the creep that we demonstrated earlier. So in conclusion, the observer is a unit that you will need to hold off certain rushes and certain cheeses, especially using cloak units. You will also, and something that you will almost certainly need to get going into the mid game and beyond for detection and scouting. Think about it, as you go into the mid game, the opponent starts to have the economy to have both conventional army and cloak units. Detection is always good. And it's also important because as you move into the mid game, this is where drops are going to become more common, run-bys are going to become more common, and plenty of games have been won and lost because an army was either in or out of position. A drop wasn't scouted, or the army managed to walk up all the way in front of your third base before you knew it was there. And there are cloak spies, which tells you exactly what you need to know, provided you don't lose them or worse still in December to me, forget them. Like you put the fella in surveillance mode and then you forgot he's there. After all, knowledge is power. So we're done here. If you like this guide, please do like and subscribe. I make as many of these videos as I can every week, plus other Starcraft 2 content rather. If you have any feedback, do comment below, like the video. Yeah. We'll see you next time.